Welcome into another edition of Locked On Eagle Squad podcast. Harry Mays, Jason Bertitas, Marc Farzetta with you. Today we're going to break down a brand new story regarding Jalen Hurts' contract negotiations of his most recent deal, the big deal for $250 million, and a unlikely concern that was brought to his attention. We'll also continue our breakdown of the rewind of the Philadelphia Eagles 2024 magical season that was, with weeks 13 and 14. That's all in this edition of Locked On Eagle Squad podcast.
Fly, Eagles, fly. It's the Eagles Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Philadelphia Eagles every week, covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the city of brotherly love, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Eagles Squad show starting now.
Welcome in once again, everybody. Jason Bertitas, Harry Mays, Marc Farzetta with you. Louis DiBiase couldn't be with us today. We'll be back with us for our next Eagle Squad podcast on Thursday afternoon. But, gentlemen, I don't know if you guys saw the story or not of Nicole Lynn, who is the agent for Jalen Hurts. She revealed in a recent interview Jalen Hurts' main concern with the new contract, $250 million, made him the highest paid player in the NFL. And his concern was whether or not he was going to be able to keep A.J. Brown on his squad, keep Devontae Smith on the squad, keep the O-line intact, help out the defense, and, what do you know, later down the line have the highest paid running back ever in Saquon Barkley. I know you guys know I think I'm driving the love train. I'm the conductor on the love train for Jalen Hurts. But this just adds more fuel to that fire. That adds more coal to the fire, moving that choo-choo on down the ride. I continue to think about how many times we've seen the false prospects come in as quarterbacks, hope that they would be the guy for the next 15 years or whatever, and it hasn't worked out. Jason, Jalen Hurts to me is every ounce of that guy. Have you seen the new story regarding his agent, and what do you make of this guy, again, having another example of putting the team first?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Look, it comes down to him of getting paid and being paid based on your accomplishment. That's how sometimes the players feel validated. They go, well, I'm not going to take less money because this player is getting that, and I'm better than him. So that's their way of validation. You go, well, really, how much money do you need? Well, the validation is part of that equation. And he's got validation. But the way the contract is structured, other guys can get paid because, look, some quarterbacks are about winning when it's convenient, but other quarterbacks are about winning because that's the way they're wired. I think that's just the way he's wired. And to win in the NFL, you've got to have other money available to keep a team together as best you can and to keep adding to it as you lose pieces, because your team has money. You don't want to, tie their hands and tie their feet so that you can't do anything with your playing days. And you make all this money, you're going to be miserable because you're losing. So I think it's a big part of it with Jalen Hurts, and it doesn't shock me in the least that he was concerned about that, because from day one we've known he's a team guy. He's willing to put team over himself all the time. So no shock there. It's awesome to see it that a guy who's gone to 2 Super Bowls, won one, and won an MVP hasn't changed his moral, kind of obligation. And never, morality in sports is very fleeting. It can apply to everybody but yourself a lot of times in sports. And he's a guy that's kept his moral compass intact. And I'm glad to see, I read those articles and read those quotes from his agent, and I'm happy about that because it's important.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all to find this out. And, if I'm Jalen Hurts, if I'm in his camp, I wanted this to get out. I mean, I don't know how this all came about, where it came out now, but this is the kind of news that you want to have sort of filter out at some point, because it just sort of adds to the lore of Jalen Hurts as a man and as a player. It's team first. I'm looking at the next 5 years as a 5-year contract. We got a squad together here where I think that, we could win 3 Super Bowls in the next couple of years, 2 more Super Bowls in the next couple of years, and be, all become an all-time, NFL roster. And the way you do that is you I don't know how they do it because it's all about the structure. When I look at $255 million over 5 years with a signing bonus, which kind of doesn't seem like a whole lot, of 24 million or something, but then it's 180 million of it's guaranteed. I'm like, man, how are they going to be able to keep this squad together with those kinds of numbers? But that's why Howie Roseman is great at what he does, and that's why you hire these agents. They figure all this stuff out, and the fact that they've figured it out, to keep this nucleus together over the next couple of seasons is tremendous news. And I don't know how else to react to it. I guess I'm so used to having done this for so many years, finding reasons to be upset with stuff, and it's really kind of uncomfortable territory for me because I don't really know how to react to really good news constantly coming out. It's like everything's good.
Quarterback.
Yeah.
You think it's a smoke signal, Har, to other players around the league too? Hey, you may have heard I got paid, but we still need to pay you if you want to win. This is the place to be.
Right. Yeah.
Signals to other players.
This is the genuine. There's no other way to put it. I think Jalen Hurts is just the absolute genuine article.
Yeah.
And other people that don't follow him every day, other people that don't watch him every day, read the stories, see the press conference, all that. If you're someone, out of market, for instance, and you're reading these quotes or you're seeing these stories, you're probably rolling your eyes at it. And don't get me wrong, I know there's a few people in Philadelphia that are still probably rolling their eyes at it. But on the national scale, you're going, okay, dude, all right, stop reading, just reading motivational posters, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. No, that's how he is. And my favorite part of this story, this new story that's come out, is that imagine being his agent. Okay, imagine you're Nicole Lynn. You just negotiated the biggest deal in the NFL. You go to Jalen Hurts, you're like, hey, congratulations, you're the highest paid player. And he's like, oh, no.
Right. Oh,
you're thinking I just landed you
a team. What's that going to – does that mean we can keep AJ?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And she's like, no, here's how it works. And she said she had to kind of tell him how the cap hit would work throughout the contract and how it does enable Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie to still bring back other players, sign those big checks, make sure the players stay around him. And then the thing is, it all has worked out. I mean, there's the obvious, the Super Bowl. So, yes, it's worked out. But think about this. You're paying a linebacker now on the Eagles, partially because Jalen Hurts took the deal that he took, and they worked it the way they could work it. You are paying the highest paid running back now in the NFL history, and Saquon Barkley. That's something we've never seen in Philadelphia. You also have two stud receivers, whether you want to argue about 1 versus 2 or 1A versus 1B, whatever. You also have Jordan Mailata signed to a long-term deal. Lane Johnson just reworked a deal. Landon Dickerson reworked a deal. Right. All these guys are getting paid.
Yeah.
For a long time, Harry, people have brought up, how do you afford this guy? How do you afford that guy? You can't do it because of the cap. I know the cap is a real thing, and I know it matters, but it really does seem like nobody in the NFL knows how to manipulate that cap more so than Howie Roseman. So you have all these highest paid players at all these different positions, including 2, which are just unheard of in Philadelphia, linebacker and running back. Oh, and you're still paying your franchise quarterback who doesn't even have a top 5 deal in the NFL anymore.
Right. Yeah. Plus, you got a defensive tackle that's going to be coming up for a big raise here pretty soon, and could end up being the highest paid at that position, before too long too. And if I'm one of the other 31 other teams, I'm like trying to collude together to get an investigation, in front of Congress or something as to how the Eagles managed to do this, because it really is mind-boggling when you think about it. That you return a team that wins a Super Bowl. You give your quarterback a big raise, and yet you still have all this other money to keep everybody else. I mean, obviously they can't keep everybody. Milton Williams ended up getting an unbelievable deal in New England, and he's gone. And certain other guys are going to find their ways to other teams. Goddard's probably here for maybe only one more year, and you'll have to probably be looking elsewhere after that. But I mean, to keep the nucleus together, and we could define that nucleus as the offensive line, the quarterback, the all world running back, your 2, basically the whole offense is part of that, is the nucleus. And then you got certain select guys. You mentioned the linebacker, for the first time ever that we could sit here and say that, they've really invested in a linebacker, the defensive front, and, you got 2 young upstart, super talented cornerbacks. So that's a lot of players. when you think about it, either on rookie deals or have already turned the corner and are making, big time money. It's amazing.
Yeah. And to go back to what you were saying earlier, just about, it's like, what do you say about a quarterback who just seems to check every box for you?
Yeah.
I mean, other than winning and winning humbly, other than
Right.
keeping the main thing. I remember even when he signed his contract, the new contract, he talked about, money is nice, but championships are nicer. It's just like this guy.
Yeah.
Come on. Like, it's almost too good to be true, but it is in fact true. And then you also add on to it with the idea that, him and Howie Roseman and really this entire team, I've joked about this with Howie Roseman before. It's like, yeah, this job of like talking Eagles was a lot more fun when they sucked and we looked smart. And now it's just like, well, they look really smart.
Yeah.
So applaud them. Like, that's not how it's supposed to go.
It's a strange dynamic.
It really is.
Yeah.
I remember, Harry, years ago, I was in Pittsburgh the year after they won the Super Bowl with Mike Tomlin. That was the Santonio Holmes corner of the end zone catch in the Super Bowl in Tampa. And I remember driving around Pittsburgh, listening to sports talk radio out there. And I just remember thinking, wow, what would happen? This is 2009. I'm like, what would happen in Philadelphia if the Eagles won? Like, what would happen to the sports conversation? Would we just be like, well, they did it, so we're good now? And then I thought, well, no, because the Phillies won in 2008, and that just, like, Philadelphia booed the Phillies after their 2008 championship. I think it took 4 outs. 4 outs into the next game. We were at their throats already. The Eagles eventually won the Super Bowl in 2017, and then to kick off the next season, literally got booed off the field at halftime. So there was no honeymoon period other than the offseason.
Right.
But there's nothing like right now where this core is young. The offensive line, for the most part, is young. Your quarterback's young. Your running back still has plenty of good football left in him, and he got 2 stud receivers there as well. It feels like right now this is just a tip of the iceberg when it comes to how great this team could be. So you introduce where does the drama come in? Where does the problem come in? If you're really analyzing it, if you were trying to be negative, like I really got to find a negative point of view for the Eagles, they've kind of squashed that too. Like the only threat to this team I see is a threat that's against every other team, which is injury. That's it. Because they even talked through their problems last year. I know we're going to talk about the Carolina Panthers game today, and I look forward to talking about that game because if you were looking for negative, it was easy to find in that one.
Sure.
But after that game, everyone talked about tough conversations, hard conversations. Everybody put the feelings aside. You had to have those real talks around the locker room. And, oh, look, they came out better on the other end. So it's a kind of a situation, Harry, where, we could say whatever we want. Or, excuse me, we could say stuff about the Eagles, but the Eagles can't say stuff about the Eagles. And it's like, you could talk about my brother, but I can't talk about your brother, however that saying goes.
Right.
That's kind of like the Eagles locker room. And they just find a way to mend fences and solve problems whenever they rear their ugly heads.
Yeah, and those 2 games that we're going to look at later today are really indicative of a lot of these conversations because there were 2 games where the quarterback stats were kind of, they were efficient, but he really didn't do a lot. Like you're looking at the numbers and you're like, that sort of hurts in a microcosm. Like he doesn't wow you with stats. Like that's why, when these guys put together lists at this time of year of quarterbacks or whatever, he doesn't maybe appear as high as we might, in Philadelphia think that he deserves because he doesn't wow you with stats. He's not throwing for 350 every week. In fact, that's the rarity when he does. It's like, 11 for 18 for 120 some yards and a touchdown and he runs for 2 and you're like, okay, it's good. They won the game, but what if I need to rely on him to give me that 300-400 yard game, to win us one? And it's like, okay, well, if we really have to, he probably could pull it off, but he just doesn't sort of need to. He plays within the structure of what they have. And that to me goes to where his ego is not within himself about, I gotta show out here. No, I don't. I got to do what we need to do. And that's the way he goes about it. And it's really kind of something for a fan to really have to get used to because we're not used to with superstar athletes. It's usually about them at some point. And at this point, it has never been about Jalen Hurts.
Dare I say, the main thing is the main thing. Again, another thing that makes some people roll their eyes, but that's exactly what he's all about. And I like to use the term, Jason, he cracked the code. You talk about not putting up stats. Yeah, he doesn't need it. And so what does it take to win? If I just don't turn this football over, if I don't try to thread that needle or throw it downfield in that double cover, if I don't need to do it and the reward isn't really there versus the risk, then guess what? I'm not going to do it. I'm going to eat a sack. I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to scramble for a couple of yards, and I'm going to live to fight another down. That has really been the way I look at it, that Jalen Hurts has cracked the code.
Yeah, almost when you listen to him in a postgame, I went blah, blah, blah for blah, 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 and these many touchdowns and no turnovers for the win. The only part that matters is for the win.
Yeah,
right.
You wonder, like, he's a physical quarterback because of his stature and that, we talk about the tush push a ton. But you got to wonder too, if him taking the load off himself at times where some quarterbacks just want to carry their team and they're just going crazy bonkers to do it. There's a wear and tear factor to that too. Maybe he preserves himself a little bit better because he doesn't have to be the man. Like we saw it. Carson Wentz was a guy who would get outside the pocket and move, but it was to his detriment. You can
hero ball.
You can be a competitive to a point of detriment. We've seen guys do that. Hurts is competitive to the point of not being selfish and not being about him. And it's about team. And look, I think there was a period of time where probably you guys, and I know for me and a lot of fans, you wonder if those are just cliche phrases and words. Oh, it's all about the team. Yeah, right. Ultimately, every pro athlete's about themselves. Well, with him, the longer it's gone on here, the way things have, kind of developed and taken place and the success along with some of the failures as well, how he's responded to it makes you go, that's not just a cliche with him.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of authenticity to what he's saying. He's not just giving you the players speak. So with him, it is the real deal. And I think a lot of players can say it living. It's different. He lives it.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. When we come back, I want to look at this, Harry, because you found these numbers when it comes to jersey sales, or at least the rankings of these jersey sales in the NFL, and the Eagles. They're raking in the dough when it comes to merchandise. Let's just say, and no, not all of it's going to Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts. It's getting spread around. But a couple of names here, top of the list here of your Philadelphia Eagles. That's when we return. This is Locked On Eagles Squad podcast. And also, here's a question for this Philadelphia Eagles squad. Who would you be bringing back? When I say Eagles squad, I mean the actual Eagles team, not this Eagle. I'd bring back Louis DiBiase, but unfortunately he's busy. This is Locked On Eagles Squad podcast on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Back after this. Now, let me tell you about the Gametime app. You guys have heard us talking about the Gametime app plenty and how fantastic it is. Well, take advantage of all the Gametime app has to offer. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase on the Gametime app. And you want to go to the concert, the comedy show, the big event, whatever it might be, Gametime app has you covered for it all. So make sure you take advantage, and take advantage specifically of Gametime Picks. Now, what is that? Gametime Picks filters out all the fluff so you get right down to it. The best seats at the best prices on the Gametime app. So you take advantage of that with Gametime Picks. And also you could view your seat before you buy it. And also, don't forget, in Philadelphia, just want to say on the app, they got zone deals offering 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. What? Yes! Take advantage of it all with the Gametime app. So once again, download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed on the Gametime app.
Wow.
All right, let's get it. Yeah, how about that, huh?
Wow.
Deal.
FIFA World Cup matchups. Yes.
Yes.
Go, man. Did you see it? Did you see them down at the Linc in the parking lot? They got fires going.
Is that right?
I feel like football fans. Do you hear what I'm saying there? Football fans. I feel like Eagles fans at their craziest would look at football fans and go, "These guys are nuts." Like
they're fanatical.
They seem really into this.
So what do they?
Eagles
What do they got? One of those friendlies going on at the Linc between a couple of those.
That's the FIFA World Championship, Harry.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was one of those friendlies where those big name teams usually come over and then they play like they're B and C guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's
okay.
It's the Club World Cup.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
it's in a bunch of different cities, but Linc is one of them.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Nice. And they've hosted their fair share of soccer matches there before at Jeff Lurie Stadium.
Now, did they put a new turf in? Do they have to like put a new field in? Yeah.
It looks beautiful. It really does look gorgeous. When I saw it on TV, I thought it was highlights from another stadium. Because I get into the football a little bit, not crazy, but a little bit. Yeah. So I looked at it, I was like, oh, where's this game being played? I was like, that's the Linc? That doesn't look like the Linc. Like, they did a great job. It's officially now it's a pitch right now. It's no longer the field.
Not a gridiron for Temple football, Harry.
No.
Enough of this Temple football.
Oh, jeez. How did they get an unsolicited shot? What did
I don't know. I just delivered one though.
I believe the term is catching strays. I believe that's the term.
Yes.
Wow.
Catching strays. Yeah.
2 Temple guys here, Jason.
I've
Take it
seen
easy.
enough.
That's a joke.
As a Penn Stater.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Ridiculous. I drive into a Flyers game. Temple's playing. I wouldn't even know it.
Oh,
I pulled into my parking lot there. I had the old H lot.
Yeah.
You can see right over inside the top part of the stadium.
Yeah.
And when Temple's playing, I know they're playing because it's empty. The lights are on.
You can just
see like, who left the lights on?
All right, let's let the Temple slander commence on the program. Thank you very much.
Hate to do it.
No, you're basking in it. Anyway.
Yeah, no, you don't hate to do anything.
That's exactly right.
I know it might not be on a lot of people's radar, but for me, I know this matters, and Harry, I know it matters to you too. I love this. I love the idea of the Eagles becoming, for lack of a better word, a trend, because it just shows that people are appreciating what you're doing. If you're willing to don a jersey of a team that you might not necessarily root for, but a player you certainly love, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, the only person splitting them on the jersey sales list, Saquon Barkley, number 1. Patrick Mahomes, number 2. Jalen Hurts, top 3. Those are the top 3 in sales when you talk about the top 50 players that are pushing product, moving units here in the NFL.
And it's really good to see that politics doesn't weigh into this, because a lot of people might sit there and say, oh, well, Saquon Barkley took a hit because he played golf with, President Trump, or, maybe Jalen Hurts took a hit because he decided not to go to visit the White House. Well, neither of that matters, okay? Because football fans just love football and they don't care about all the other stuff outside of that. With Barkley leading this list is really interesting because he's the first running back to appear at number 1 since 2017, when Ezekiel Elliott had led the league in jersey sales. Remember, I mean, think about how long ago that was. That's 8 years ago.
8 years ago.
When Zeke was at the top of the league with the Dallas Cowboys. The whole feed me thing, jumping into the Salvation Army pot and everything. I mean, he was at the top of the league.
Well, let me ask you guys this question. We're all guys that grew up here in varying degrees of the greater Philadelphia area. Yeah. Did you ever have any jerseys of non-Eagle NFL players? I did.
I never had any
jerseys. I had one.
Who was it?
We don't need to talk about it.
No, I always liked the other players in uniforms from other teams growing up. There's certain things as I got older where I was like, okay, I can't do that team because of so much scar tissue and history. Yeah, no. So you often go, let me go to the AFC, or in baseball, you went to the AL, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, I had a David Ortiz Red Sox jersey.
Yeah, see, that's a good one.
I never wore it but once or twice.
Yeah, but that's a cool jersey. Look, we're fans of the local teams. That's the diehard, but we're also fans of sport. I love I have tons of hockey jerseys, as you can imagine. I have a lot of Flyer ones.
They're sweaters, I thought.
Yes, yeah, it's exactly. But I also have a hideous looking Phoenix Coyotes Keith Kachuk jersey, number 9.
Oh, that's pretty clutch.
I
Yeah,
love
I mean,
Keith and Chuck,
cool
but that's an ugly sweater.
It's so ugly
Yeah.
to me. It looks
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Like that's part of
It's
it.
so ugly. No one outside the market would buy it. So if you did, you look cool.
You
That's
really
pretty cool.
stand out. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when the Sharks jerseys came out, we saw those all over the place around.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll be upfront with you guys. I went. It was a spoil the client type of affair where my dad was the client of this sales rep, whatever, and he got Jets tickets to go to a Jets Patriots game at the Meadowlands. Vinny Testaverde was the quarterback of the Jets at the time.
At University of Miami, huh?
Yeah.
At University of Miami. And also happens to be an Italian-American. My dad, obviously, Italian-American. And guess who got a Vinny Testaverde jersey? This guy.
You.
So there you go. It's strictly for cultural reasons.
Yeah, but the Jets are never a threat.
Yes,
Right.
they're the AFL too.
Right.
Yeah.
Or AFC. Jesus, how old am I?
Yeah, they're never a threat to the Eagles. They're in the other conference. They share the hatred for the Giants. So you can that absolutely you can get immunity for that wearing that jersey.
There's
I had a
definitely
Testaverde and a Cunningham. That's it. Testaverde and Cunningham were my jerseys.
Yeah, there's definitely a workaround, with the Jets. Like you can sort of, manage your way to being like, this is okay because they're non-threatening. They're a team that's sort of like, wow, you like a Jet, and then it gives you a story to tell. Yeah, well, my father, blah, blah, blah. So
sure.
Like the Cleveland Browns would probably be another team like that, where if there was a Browns player, like if you were a Bernie
Kevin Mack jersey, another University of Miami quarterback, Bernie.
Yes.
Yeah. Kevin Mack was a great running back there. He was a dog pound years and all that.
But I think it's kind of cool that this tells me that the Eagles are sort of becoming one of those brands, those national brands, like the Steelers, like the Packers, like the Cowboys. The Cowboys still are a national brand. Obviously, they're not as high as I don't think they're as high as they used to be because of all these years of disappointment. But I think there's a lot of Philly fans that probably don't like that. No, I don't need people in Nebraska being an Eagles fan. They sort of have an issue with that. I don't. I think it's pretty
gatekeeping.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's cool too because you got to look at why. Why are they the team that is selling jerseys outside of the Delaware Valley? You got to look at why that is. It's because they're having success. Like people that don't have geographic commitment to fandom, they choose and they change.
Right.
And where do they change it? Very few people gravitate to the losers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
Eagles are becoming a team. Yeah. The Eagles are becoming a team that everybody has a feeling about.
Yeah. I think people like Bradley Cooper helped that.
I would think Bradley Cooper had a big part of that.
Yeah.
I think you're also looking at the fact that the tush push has helped with this a lot. Everybody hating it, but the Eagles getting to keep it. The fact that they won a Super Bowl, the fact that they took Saquon Barkley from the biggest market you could take anyone from and then won a Super Bowl with them. I think that's also a big part of it.
Yep.
And look, these are also on the more even-keeled side of this. Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley are very likable players. They're easy guys to root for. Like you wouldn't have a problem outside the market buying that jersey for one of your kids. That's an easy purchase for one of your kids. Even if Saquon Barkley was on your kid's fantasy team, they love that player now, because of the season they had for him. So I think these are just easy guys to root for. Yes, there is a negative side of it where there are people that don't want other people from outside the Delaware Valley wearing that jersey. Those guys are frauds. Like, look, people in Philadelphia. Yeah, right. People in Philadelphia.
You're not in the club.
Yeah. I was born an Ambler. I never say I'm from Philadelphia because I know there's going to be somebody coming up from the weeds being like, yeah, you're from Philly. What neighborhood? That's not Philly. Right. You know what I mean?
What's your parish?
We're very parochial like that.
What parish are you in?
What parish are you in, hon? Yeah, exactly.
Well, and you talk about, maybe reasons why, they become a likable brand outside of this area. I know Patrick Mahomes is sandwiched in between these two guys, but I think there was a lot of people, a lot of football fans with a lot of Chiefs fatigue, and the Eagles finally just vanquished that for at least the time being. And I think that makes him more likable, amongst people from out of town.
If you went back to the early 90s and mid 90s, it would be Cowboy players. It would be Emmett, Aikman, and it would be
and the Niners. Irvin.
Yeah, and the Niners for sure.
Fans, yeah.
With Jerry Rice and Joe Montana for obvious reasons. Although the Cowboys were a team that was outside of Dallas, despised in a lot of markets, people also cling to it because they're the outlier and they like the attention of liking the team that everybody in their geographical region hates.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it too. And like you mentioned, like Barkley and Hurts are, they're obviously good players, winners, but they're also good people. I remember those teams in the early and mid 90s with Dallas. It was like the Dallas criminals, they would call them, for all the bad deeds off
partying at the White House. Their version of the White House.
Yeah. That's a different one than
that's a different White House.
Saquon's visit.
Yeah, the Texas White House is what it is.
Right.
That's the Rick James White House, Harry.
Yeah, that's where you snorted a lot of white.
Yes. Yeah. You brought your skis with you.
Exactly.
Hey, I want to piggyback off this with something else before we get into our rewind for last year. But Harry, you asked a question earlier before the show. Actually, we're just kicking around topics here about a player to bring back to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, well, I saw this on Bleeding Green Nation this morning. I go there quite often for good content and some topics, especially during this time of the year. And that was one of them. If you could reacquire an Eagles player, who would it be and why? And I thought it was kind of interesting because they went through the list of, which team currently has the most former Eagles players, which have none. And ironic, I thought it was kind of surprising. The Commanders apparently had 7 former Eagles on the roster, and they came in at number 1, which I thought was pretty interesting. But I just thought we could kick it around. I mean, there's one guy that comes to mind for me. We might all be on the same page here. I don't know. But I hated the way it ended. I hated that he had to go to the Jets, and he didn't want to play on the Jets, and now he's in Tampa. But Hassan Reddick, I still think, has a couple of good bullets left in the chamber in his career. I think he's still got a couple of 2-3 years left. He'll be 31 during the football season. He turns 31, I think, in September. And really did nothing last year, so had really no wear and tear on the tread from last season. And I think they could use a guy to rush the passer with defensive end type of situation coming off the edge, and he could get you 11, 12 sacks. I think we could use that.
That's interesting because you don't have to blitz to get pressure when you've got him. I don't like the way it ended either. It felt really messy.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, he fits what they need. You're in favor of reacquiring him.
Well, no, I'm just saying if you could reacquire a player, that would be the guy. I'm not saying to go out and do it. I don't know how they do it, but if everything
they could use what he brings.
If everything was even, come on back.
That's why I'm looking at Jahad Campbell for the upcoming season. I'm looking at Nolan Smith taking another step forward because they still. We've talked a lot about replacing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, which, spoiler, is my guy that I'd like to see brought back. But talk about Hassan Reddick for a minute. You're still waiting to acquire that kind of pass rusher. You're still trying to fill that void. I mean, look at the Jonathan Gannon defense. Yeah, we always say they didn't blitz much. They barely blitzed. Well, Vic Fangio does not blitz. Like, Jonathan Gannon looks like Jim Johnson compared to Vic Fangio going after the quarterback. So if you could get a guy like Hassan Reddick to have that kind of production where you're not necessarily blitzing, you're still rushing 4 or 5, then I would love to have somebody be able to get after the quarterback like Hassan Reddick. That to me is something that they still greatly miss. The guy that I would bring back and it still stings that he's not here, is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Talk about it ending messy. Vic Fangio just said last week, cap move. I was fine with it. Like, I don't think he meant any disrespect by it, but
he's got to move on.
It's so exactly. But it was so passive. Like, where's the great player? We're gonna miss him here. Other guys got to step up to replace that kind of production. But he was just so matter of fact. Like, he's not here. I was fine with it. Next question. Like that was like
he's messaging to the other players on the defense through the media there. is what
Maybe.
he's doing.
Yeah.
This guy's not available to me. I can't worry about it because
Right.
it's a non-start. I can't do anything about it one way or another at this point. One of the when you bring up Reddick too, one of the questions is, Brandon Graham retired.
Mhm.
Where's pressure going to come from?
No sweat.
Yeah, where's pressure on the opposing quarterback going to come from? That's one of the question marks we have going into this season. How are they going to get pressure without blitzing the way that Vic Fangio likes? And we know how important that pressure is because it creates such a bad environment for the quarterback, forces him to turn the ball over. It's a huge element. Where's it going to come from? You feel like you'd feel maybe a little bit more comfortable if you had a Hassan Reddick there who can manufacture that on his own a lot of times, especially given scheme. So that's one of the questions going in. So, yeah, I agree with Harry. Hassan Reddick's a good one. CJ Gardner-Johnson's another good one. We'll see where it goes, but this is the attrition of being a good team. You're going to lose some guys.
Yeah.
Did you bring back Hurts?
Zach Ertz from Washington, yeah.
He had a pretty good year last year for them.
He did against the Eagles, didn't he?
Yeah.
He had like 8 catches that one game.
Yeah, the second game, I think it was. Because remember, that's when there was a little fallout between Sirianni and Ertz.
Yeah,
the way they were shaking
record
hands
about it.
Yeah. We FaceTimed each other the day after. We're good. Everything's fine.
They were sniping at each other through the media.
Yeah, a little bit. But we're both competitive guys. Competition got the better of us. That kind of thing. Yeah. Jason, all right, Hassan Reddick, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, would you bring back Zach Ertz if you say bring back somebody?
Well, with Ertz, it's the question because I have the question about Dallas Goedert's health through the year. Mm-hmm. And if I got a guy like Ertz there, that I'm not asking him to come back to be what he was in his prime here, because that's gone. But if Goddard goes down, can he step in for a game or two or help lighten that load at times to not wear him down? I'm not usually a nostalgia kind of guy. I don't get into that. Like
he's still getting it done.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I watched that game against Washington last year, and I was like, well, he doesn't look like a guy's cooked.
Right.
You got to know the medicals on these guys, especially at their age, because there's a lot of wear and tear on the body. And we've seen it how many times in football. A guy goes from, he doesn't look cooked at all, then all of a sudden he looks real cooked. Yeah. Like overnight he got cooked to too much. So you just don't know. I don't follow him close enough to know, if he still has that to give in that role of being a guy that can step in if Goddard goes down. So I would think about it, but like I've never been a nostalgia guy. Like people in sports are always like, trade for so-and-so, bring them back. And I'm like, nah, you got to move on.
Yeah.
Bring back
with Drew right now. Yeah, like we're hearing that with Drew because he's available. I'm like, nah. And there was no bigger honk for that player than me.
Oh, you are the honk. You are the G honk. And if you don't want him back, then that's good on you.
And look, you got to remember what that player was when they were here and how they'll affect the guys that are here now. So, like bringing like Drew back would cut the legs off of the guys that were here that ascended and filled that void of leadership when he left.
Right.
To all of a sudden bring back. You can't bring back certain guys and go just blend in.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you could just bring Ertz back and you could just say blend in at this point in your career here because of the history. He can blend in with Washington or another team, but going back here, you can't just blend in.
Well, he was a real security blanket for Daniels, though, was Ertz last year.
Oh, sure, yeah.
No doubt about it.
I will say
Daniels
this
was
about
the
Hurts,
one to
though.
come here.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, absolutely not. But I will say this about Hurts, and this is when I reflect on his career in Philadelphia, it's hard to find, I think, a more underappreciated athlete in Philadelphia than Zach Ertz. If you think about like his biggest moments, like the receptions record, okay, it's looked on negatively because, that's all Carson Wentz was looking at. It's looked on negatively because of Carson Wentz. It's not looked on positively because Zach Ertz was so great. Exactly. You look at him, the go-ahead touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they had to determine if he had control, right?
Right. And overshadowed by the strip sack and the recovery. And also the final possession was in Tom Brady's hands before he drastically underthrew that Hail Mary. And that was that. You look at some of the biggest accomplishments in his Eagles career. Of all the great stuff he did, it got overshadowed with either something bigger, more memorable, whether it was Philly special or the strip sack, or it was just Carson Wentz is just throwing to Ertz too much. And it's like, well, wait, that means Zach Ertz is also really good. I know that you want to spread the ball around a little bit, but he can't help it.
He's getting open.
When I look back on his career, I think he's extremely underrated talent in Philadelphia. And you're also looking at a guy that's probably putting together a Hall of Fame career.
He had 66 catches last year for 7 touchdowns, 654 yards. That's the most production that he's had since 2019 with the Eagles, where he had 88 catches for 916 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Tank doesn't look empty.
No,
based on those numbers. Again, he's not what he was. But again, the question is, when it comes to him, is can you bring him back in that different role and have it feel comfortable for all the parties involved?
Probably not.
Yeah,
probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to his charity. He still does a lot of great work at House of Hope in Hunting Park, if you guys aren't familiar. Great spot for a lot of people in that community there. So he's still very much involved in the Philadelphia community in that way. Hey, we're not nostalgic, but we are, in fact, going to go back through last year and talk about weeks 13 and weeks 14, taking on the Baltimore Ravens and the Carolina Panthers. These games were interesting, to say the absolute least. We'll talk about them. First, the Baltimore game. When we return, this is Locked On Eagles Squad podcast. So let's get into this Baltimore game, gentlemen. The Eagles were in the midst of a 10-game winning streak. They had just beaten the LA Rams out in Los Angeles, and then they were headed to Baltimore for the Sunday kickoff. I believe that was a Sunday night game, 24-19. They ended up pulling out that victory against the Ravens. Jalen Hurts, Harry, I think the words you use, efficient, not boastful numbers by any means. My number one takeaway from this game, well, there are two, but I'll just say the one for now and leave some meat on the bone for everybody else. Derrick Henry versus Saquon Barkley. When Saquon Barkley's team needed him, Saquon Barkley was there. When the Baltimore Ravens needed needed Derrick Henry, Cooper DeJean was there for the stop. Those are my two takeaways of that game.
It was also at that point we got a lot of games in at that point in the season. I think it was their 10th or 11th or 12th game, and it was kind of for the rushing lead at that point between those two. Yeah. And we see the two top running backs in the NFL head to head. I remember going into that game very nervous because it was a back-to-back road game, and it was coming off the LA game. And we always look at those spots in the schedule where you go, it's not necessarily who you're playing, and you were playing a really good team in Baltimore who only came in with 4 losses in 12 games, but it's when you were playing them. Can they go back on the road? Now, the travel to Baltimore is not hard for Philadelphia. It's straight down 95.
Yeah, right.
But would the time zone changes of the LA game the week prior play a part in how the Eagles looked coming out for this game? Well, they went in LA, they blitzed that team, if you recall, and then they went to Baltimore and beat a really good Baltimore team on the road too. So I think this was the point we're saying, okay, this might be more than we thought it was all of a sudden when you go to Baltimore and get that win.
Yeah, I remember in real time thinking that you talk about the schedule, Jason, like the Rams game on the road and then Baltimore. I thought they would definitely lose one of those two games. Yeah. And I think at the time I thought it was going to be the Los Angeles game. Of course, they ended up disposing of them pretty easily. So then naturally I'm thinking, well, now they're going to lose to Baltimore. This is where the streak ends. And they had no Devontae Smith in this game. So you didn't know how that was going to play out. And then they fell behind 9-0 early on. And Justin Tucker may have needed a massage prior to this game, now looking back on it all, because he missed that extra point. And actually, I think missed 2 field goals in the game that would have been the difference. Had he made both of those field goals and the extra point, they win the game. Just looking at it from points to points. Now, you can't say what things have happened any differently, had he made the first field goal. I don't know. But they fell down 9-0 in that game. They were outgained in that game by 120 yards. They were only 4 of 12 on third down. We talked about the Jalen Hurts stats. I wrote down meager. He was 11 of 19 for 118 yards and a touchdown. And you're thinking like, that, again, not stats that are going to blow you away at all, but they won the game. Jalen Carter was an absolute animal. 3 tackles for loss, including a sack and 2 other quarterback hits. Zach Bond had a huge sack on third down of Lamar Jackson that led to one of those missed field goals. I think the first one in the second half, they missed on consecutive possessions. This was the first one, and made it a 47-yard attempt. You're thinking, well, Justin Tucker, he should be in the Hall of Fame. He's probably going to make this kick. Missed it, and then he missed another one. And this was the 8th game in a row that they won. It put them at 10-2 on the year. And at that point, they only have now one road game left on the schedule for the rest of the year, and that's the Washington game. So huge win for them.
That's crazy, Harry.
Yeah, huge win for them to get 24-19.
Wow, to only have one more road game after December 1st is pretty crazy. I forgot about that element.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, just get through this one, boys. Just get through this one, and things will be a lot easier down the stretch. But you mentioned Jalen Carter. Right before halftime, I remember he had a sack on Lamar Jackson, a 12-yard sack that helped knock him back there quite a ways. They ended up getting a field goal, I think, out of that one. But then the other play that I really think of in this one is there was a third down. Eagles were up 2, I think. I think it was 14-12 in the fourth quarter. 3rd and 7. Dallas Goedert runs that crossing route. I can't remember if it was a rub route or not, but he comes across the middle. Jalen Hurts hits him on point, room to run, gains the first down. I think it was the next play or 2 plays later, maybe Saquon Barkley takes it in 25 yards for a touchdown run. And that was the key moment. That was like Derrick Henry has already been stood up by Cooper DeJean with that awesome hit, hanging in the Louvre type hit, and then Saquon Barkley capped it off with that 25-yard touchdown run that made you go, oh yeah, the Eagles got this. The Eagles got this. Yeah. And then, in fact, they did have it. But yeah, Justin Tucker did struggle in that game as well.
It's funny because Saquon, sometimes his numbers didn't look gaudy, like 23 rushes for 107 and a touchdown, 2 receptions for a total of 10 yards, right? But as we got to experience last year, the macro look sometimes wasn't that impressive, but the micro look was because of the big runs and when they happened. And he was a guy that at this point in the season, you're going, man, there's so much wow factor there. Even if he doesn't get the ball, it's affecting the defense because he's just such a home run weapon. I remember when that game ended, it was okay. I'm sure I posed the question to Harry on our Eagles postcast. Is this a legit Super Bowl contender? Because you don't win both of those games the way they did. Going to LA, getting down against the Baltimore Ravens and coming back and winning to, normal teams don't do that.
Yeah.
It showed that they were beyond that.
This was another one of those games mentioned with no Devontae Smith where you're looking for maybe one of those other wideouts to sort of step up and make a play that, now they're being sort of forced up the food chain as to be the second wide receiver. Well, they had 3 targets total for the quote-unquote third wideout, 1 reception to Dotson for 7 yards. I mean, I know I've been making this point, and I made it all last year too, is that's one of the things that I really need to see some improvement on in this season. If you're going to sort of take some of the burden off of Saquon Barkley, you're down one of those wideouts. These other guys got to step up. Somebody's got to step up and become a legitimate third option out, from the wideout position for Jalen Hurts this season.
Absolutely. One more thing. Eagles, after that touchdown by Saquon Barkley, they got a field goal with about a minute left from Jake Elliott that made it 24-12. And then they got a garbage time touchdown from Isaiah Likely from Lamar Jackson to make it a 24-19 game. A lot closer than it actually was. And yes, if Justin Tucker hits those field goals, we're talking about a different game. Now, the last time I was legitimately worried about the Philadelphia Eagles was the following week against the Carolina Panthers. We'll break that down when we return. This is Locked On Eagle Squad Podcast. At this moment, Harry, we're all feeling pretty good about the Philadelphia Eagles. They are in the midst again of that 10-game winning streak. They come off beating the Baltimore Ravens on the road, and they got the hapless Carolina Panthers coming into Lincoln Financial Field at the time. We're 3-9. Harry, what could go wrong? Give me another returning home, back-to-back road games. What could go wrong? Everything is the answer to that question. Everything but a loss. I've said it on this show before. I'll say it again. I know there's no moral victories, but they're sure as hell moral losses. And this game was a moral loss. This is the game that Jalen Hurts went out there, and not just Jalen Hurts, the passing game in its entirety, but the numbers for Jalen Hurts in this win, 22-16 over the Panthers. The numbers for Jalen Hurts were as follows: 14-21 for 108 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, and a rushing touchdown. Now, overall, and a fumble, but not lost. Overall, if you're looking at that, go, hold on a second, he scored 3 touchdowns and he had a terrible game. You had to watch it. You had to watch it.
Yeah.
There was one play in particular, because I remember Jordan Mailata in the locker room after this game saying, as an offensive line, we didn't know what our assignments were. We were confused. We were lost. We were looking at each other like we didn't know what to do. And the film certainly showed that. You watch the All-22, the offensive linemen are looking at each other after a breakdown in coverage going, we didn't know what was going on there. Jalen Hurts pre-snap signals to Devontae Smith. Apparently whatever he signaled didn't go through, because he drops back, looks right at Devontae Smith, not there. He runs up the middle, jumps up, looks at Devontae Smith. He points. Devontae Smith looks at him. He points at another spot. Just utter confusion. Another example, Jalen Hurts is running to his left. He's rolling out to his left. A.J. Brown's on that side of the football field with him, and instead of going upfield to help his quarterback, he reverses course and goes to the opposite side of the football field. Just everything was terrible. And yes, Jalen Hurts, couple occasions holding on to the football too long, couple occasions
got sacked 4 times.
Got sacked 4 times in total. And after the game, that's when A.J. Brown said, when somebody said, hey, so what does this team need to work on? Passing.
Mm-hmm.
And shockwaves went through the Delaware Valley. Though, hey, look, I know that I just unloaded a lot there, but that game was the last time. Yeah, that game was the last time I looked at the Eagles and went, the passing game, and I want to give credit to the reporter, but I can't remember who asked the question. They used the word atrophy. The passing game atrophied. You've been so heavily reliant on the run game. First time in Philadelphia Eagles history, by the way, where they abandoned the passing game, not the running game. It atrophied. The passing game atrophied. And I thought that was a perfect word to describe what happened to the passing game in that game.
Well, you asked what could go wrong, facing the Carolina Panthers at home. We're having a really tough time with a rookie head coach and a young quarterback who was still trying to find his way. And Xavier Legette went wrong because he had a touchdown at the goal line in his hands. There was a great throw and dropped it. And that was with less than a minute to go in the game. And he's wide open. He beats Slay on the near side. He's all the way out to the outside, the near side on the screen, and blew right past Slay. And C.J. Gardner-Johnson screwed up the coverage as well and was underneath him. He's wide open at the 1-yard line, and the ball is right in his hands. And you could see it just sort of fall out as he fell forward and rolled to the end zone. He tried to make it like, no, I really caught this, but it was an obvious drop. That totally may have changed the season. Who knows if he holds on to that ball. And that kid's a first-round pick, too, I believe, from South Carolina. So luckily, that's what happened. But they put themselves in a position, to be in that vulnerability. And it was just, thank goodness for the defense, too, because Jalen Carter and Zach Bond had themselves some games. They combined together for 5 tackles for losses and 5 quarterback hits in that game. So it was like the offense was really struggling. The quarterback, it was one of those games where you're like, wow, they won the game, but how did they win that game? Because, you look at if you just looked at the stat line, you'd be like, man, he sucks. Seriously, but this is, but these are one of these games that you see in the NFL every year. Good teams always have them, and a lot of times they come at home where you're like, man, they just didn't show up today or something. Nobody's on the same page. How are they in the game in the fourth quarter with this donkey team? It always seems to happen, but they found a way to win it.
Yeah. Adam Thielen also is another takeaway from that game.
Right.
33 years old. Was their best player, had over 100 yards in that game, and had most of them, if I remember correctly, on Cooper DeJean. And, you talk about the passing game not being on point. Cooper DeJean wasn't on point, and I think he's even described that as his welcome to the NFL moment. And there was one particular play, I think they got it mic'd up, where Adam Thielen on a 3rd and long beat Cooper DeJean. It was wide open over the middle of the field, happened by about 2.5 steps. And after the Young went down behind the line of scrimmage, I think at the hands of Bond, that might have been a Bond sack, can't remember. He turned around, Adam Thielen turned around to Cooper DeJean and just went, "Oh, I had you, man. I had you." Simple as that. So that could be that welcome to the NFL moment for Cooper DeJean. One of the first games I can really remember, and maybe only game I really remember him struggling in. But Panthers, Eagles, Jason, takeaways from that one. It was the first ugly game in quite some time that we saw the Eagles go through.
Yeah, you go through the season, you go through these peaks and valleys of ebbs and flows of a season. And you're going, why is this game close? Like, this should not be the case. So just when you're feeling like, all right, we're going good, we're Super Bowl contender, you have a clunker win. But you got to realize, a clunker win is still a win. And, you get the job done. When you look back on it, you understand a little bit more. You go, okay, what have the Eagles been through of late? Why would they have a bit of a clunker of what turned out to be a win against an inferior opponent? Well, you look back and you go, well, they did play Dallas on the road, division opponent. They did play Washington at home, both wins. They beat the brakes off of both of those teams. Then you went to LA and you went to Baltimore. You were due for an emotional letdown. Mm-hmm. But in the moment, you're going, we tend to treat each game like an individual capsule, not where it falls into the big puzzle. And in hindsight, it's easy to do that. In the moment, it wasn't. It was, wow, maybe they're not good enough to be a Super Bowl team. What do they need to get? You're getting close to, you're at the trade deadline at this point, I would imagine, too. So, yeah, it was a bit alarming when all of a sudden you're like, man, as soon as I start feeling really confident, they go out and they throw this one at me. Yeah. But
trap game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's not who you play, it's when you play them, and that was the case here.
See, that's why I
came away with a win.
I believe in trap games. I don't believe in letdown games. Like letdown games, I feel like that is a very rare thing where like only the players can talk about whether or not that's going to be the letdown game. Trap game is in a similar neighborhood, but it's not the same thing. Yeah, you could be looking ahead to your next opponent. You could be feeling really confident after 2 great road wins, coming home and playing down to an opponent, a trap, so to speak.
Right.
Some people looked at that game on the schedule as a letdown game. I didn't see it that way. And they won, too, so you didn't feel that let down afterwards. But, again, it comes down to the idea of a moral loss, and that one did not feel like a win. Like the Browns win didn't feel like a win with Sirianni yelling at the fans and barely being able to beat the Browns. This one was, wow, you barely beat the Carolina Panthers. And as you pointed out, Harry, yeah, it came close. It came really close. Too close for comfort, as a matter of fact.
Absolutely. A lot of good comments here on this game. This game definitely affected the fans. Some really good stuff here in the chat. We should read
Jeremy right here. Was this the legit almost touchdown? Screaming the F-bomb after F-bomb, even after the play. I thought he caught the ball. Says Jeremy Von Skyver. Yep. Mike Tomlin special. That's funny. I definitely felt like the team was looking past the Panthers. You could certainly make the fact that I'll never forget it. Jordan Mailata literally said into the cameras with microphones, we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
This offensive line that is bulletproof, that is unflappable, had a horrible game. Game. And I did go back. I did this game I like to do on my show called Sack Court. Like, whose fault was it? That kind of thing. Of the sacks that Jalen Hurts took, of the pressures that he had, 4 of them I think were on him. 5 of them were on the offensive line. And I think I put 2 on the wide receivers after that game. But yeah, still, Jalen Hurts needed to get rid of the ball. Bandman 100, Bryce Young balled out in that game. I have no idea how Sweat didn't bring him down for a safety to open up that Panthers drive. Was it that far back? Was it late in
their last drive?
Backed up that far?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember that.
3rd and 11. Leggett had the 31-yard reception.
Yeah.
To help out that last drive. Damn. Yeah, that wasn't fun. That wasn't a fun one. Thanks, everybody in the chat. You guys are great. Hey, folks, we're going to be back with you guys on Thursday, noon. Louis DiBiase will be back with us for that one. We're going to be continuing to break down last season, all that was, and also follow the storylines along this lull in the NFL schedule. where we just all cross our fingers and hope nothing goes horrible with off-the-field issues around the NFL, but especially with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's Jason Martinez. That's Harry Mays. I'm Marc Farzetta. I'll be back with you guys for an all-new Eagles Squad podcast coming up Thursday at noon. Look forward to seeing you guys then. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Make sure you guys hit like and subscribe on Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Louis DiBiase has you covered each and every day with your Locked On Eagles Squad podcast and content. And Harry Mays and Jason Martinez have you guys covered with your Locked On Eagles postcasts during the season. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. See you Thursday. Bye.